It happened so fast you almost missed it. You were outside, watering the garden, standing with your coffee, just existing in your own yard, and then it was there, 3 feet from your face, hovering, looking at you, not at the feeder, not at the flowers, at you, for 2, maybe 3 seconds, and then gone, vanished so completely it almost felt like it didn't happen. But it did happen, and if it's happened more than once, some part of you already knows it wasn't random. You just don't know what it actually was yet. Here's what it was. That hummingbird, a creature that weighs less than a penny, with a heart the size of a pencil eraser, was making a decision about you, based on information it had been collecting for weeks, based on a memory so precise and so powerful that it carried your face, your feeder, and the address of your yard across an entire ocean and back again. Today we go through exactly what is happening when a hummingbird comes to your face. 7 things, each one more remarkable than the last. Stay until the end, because the last one is the one people tell me they can't stop thinking about. Welcome to Bird Mind Theory. Let's start with the thing that makes everything else possible. A hummingbird's brain makes up roughly 4.2% of its total body weight. The human brain, by comparison, is about 2% of our body weight. Proportionally, the creature hovering 3 feet from your face is carrying twice the brain you are. And research has shown that this oversized brain isn't just for navigating complex flight. It is built for memory. The hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for spatial memory, recognition, and navigation, is significantly enlarged in hummingbirds compared to other birds of similar size. Hummingbirds have exceptional spatial memory, remembering the exact locations of flowers and feeders, along with the timing of nectar replenishment. They don't visit flowers randomly. They track which ones they drained 20 minutes ago and won't return until the nectar has had time to refill. They are managing a mental map of hundreds of food sources simultaneously, tracking location, replenishment rate, and timing for each one. And they are tracking you inside that same system. The brain hovering 3 feet from your face right now is proportionally more powerful than yours, and it has been paying attention to you for longer than you realize. This is the one that makes people stop and think. Hummingbirds memorize your schedule. If you fill the feeder every morning at 7 a.m., they will be waiting for you at 6:55 a.m. This is not guessing. This is not approximation. Research has documented that hummingbirds can remember the exact timing of food availability at specific locations with an accuracy measured in minutes. In controlled experiments, hummingbirds returned to feeding stations within minutes of the scheduled refill time, even when the feeders had been empty for hours, because they weren't checking randomly. They were arriving on your schedule, a schedule they learned by watching you. Think about what that means for the hummingbird at your feeder. It has observed you. It has timed you. It has built a model of your routine precise enough to predict your behavior. And then it adjusted its own schedule to arrive before you do. So it's already in position when you come outside. You thought you were watching the hummingbird. The hummingbird was watching you first. Here is where it stops being about the feeder entirely. In a 2010 study published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, researchers tested hummingbirds' ability to learn and recall human identities. 6 male rufous hummingbirds interacted with 18 different people. The hummingbirds quickly learned to associate each person's face with the reward of sugar water. When presented with pictures of the different individuals, the birds were able to distinguish between them 75% of the time. A follow-up study in 2019 went further, testing whether hummingbirds use facial structure or color patterns to identify people. The results showed hummingbirds were better at recognizing feeders based on facial shape rather than color patterns, suggesting they focus on structural facial cues for identification. They are not recognizing a human shape. They are recognizing your specific face. This is why the hummingbird hovers at your face and not at a stranger's. It isn't confused. It is confirming, checking that the person standing in the yard is the same person who has been filling the feeder, moving slowly, and being consistent. The trust it extends to you is not given to everyone who walks into your yard. It is given specifically to you based on a file it has been building every day you've been outside. Have you noticed a hummingbird that approaches you but keeps its distance from other people in your yard? That is not coincidence. That is recognition. This is the one that changes the scale of everything. The ruby-throated hummingbird regularly makes a non-stop flight of roughly 500 miles across the Gulf of Mexico, a crossing that can take 18 to 22 hours and requires fat reserves approaching half its body weight. Read that again slowly. This bird, which weighs less than a penny, flies 500 miles over open ocean with no place to land, no place to rest, no place to refuel for up to 22 hours straight. A hummingbird preparing for the Gulf crossing will spend weeks gorging on nectar and insects, building up the fuel it needs for the journey, nearly doubling its body weight in fat reserves beforehand. And when it reaches the other side, exhausted having burned through half its body weight, it doesn't find just any yard. Research has shown that individual hummingbirds return to the same yards, the same feeders, sometimes the same perch year after year. Your yard was not a random stop on a route. It was a destination, a specific address carried across an entire continent and a body of ocean, in a memory that weighs less than the bird itself. The hummingbird at your feeder right now flew 2,000 miles round trip to be in your yard specifically, not the yard next door, yours. Now here is the part that makes those 2 or 3 seconds at your face mean something different. A hummingbird's wings beat between 50 and 80 times per second. Its heart beats over 1,200 times per minute during flight. It can fly in any direction, forward, backward, straight up, straight down, and it can vanish in a fraction of a second to anywhere it chooses. And hovering is the most energetically expensive thing it does. Research on hummingbird flight mechanics has found that hovering burns more calories per second than any other movement in the animal kingdom. More than a sprinting cheetah, more than a swimming dolphin, more than any other living creature in any form of motion relative to body size. Every second that hummingbird spends hovering in front of your face is a second of maximum energy expenditure. It chose to spend those seconds there, not at the feeder, not at the flowers, in front of you, at the highest possible cost. When something that burns that much energy chooses to stop moving toward food and instead comes to you, that choice is not casual. You've seen the chasing, the dive bombing, the mid-air combat over what appears to be a plastic feeder full of sugar water. That is not random aggression. That is a territorial defense, and your feeder is the center of it. Dominant hummingbirds establish feeding territories centered on the most reliable food source. In most suburban yards, that's your feeder. The hummingbird that has been visiting you has claimed your yard as its territory, and it is willing to fight every other hummingbird that comes near it. The sharp, aggressive chirp from the bird sitting on the wire above your feeder is not random sound. It is a territorial announcement. This feeder, this yard, this reliable human, this is mine. Stay away. You didn't just attract a visitor. You became the anchor of a wild animal's entire survival strategy, the resource it is willing to fight for, the location it built its entire territorial map around. That is not a small thing to be to any creature. And now the last one. The one people tell me stays with them. When a hummingbird that knows your schedule, recognizes your face, and flew 2,000 miles to return to your specific yard, comes and hovers 3 feet from your face, it is not looking for a flower. It already knows where the flowers are. It already knows where the feeder is. It has a mental map of your entire yard memorized down to the centimeter. It came to you, not the human shape, not the movement near the feeder. You, your specific face, your specific presence, the person it has associated with safety and reliability across weeks or months of careful observation. What it is doing in those 2 or 3 seconds is something researchers are still working to fully describe. But what the behavior shows, in every documented account, in every study, in every observation, is that the hummingbird has crossed from treating your yard as a food source to treating you as something more specific, something it tracks, something it confirms the presence of, something it chooses to spend its most expensive seconds near. The bird that weighs less than a penny, that flew across an ocean on fat reserves it spent weeks building, that memorized your face with enough precision to pick you out of a crowd, that runs a territorial defense centered on your yard. That bird came to your face on purpose. And if it has happened more than once, you already know it wasn't random. Now you know what it actually was. If this changed the way you see the hummingbird in your yard, subscribe right now, because every single week on this channel we go this deep into the secret lives of the birds outside your window. And I want to hear your story in the comments. Has a hummingbird ever hovered right at your face? Has one come back to the same spot year after year? Tell me the moment. what time of year, how close it got, how long it stayed. I read every single one. And share this with someone who has a hummingbird feeder, because after this video, they will never see those 2 seconds the same way again.